hi Lynn. Hi Chris. I thought I would come on a little earlier in case people didn't get a chance to cut out their pieces, and I waited to cut mine out, which will probably mess up the work. So let me get my screen so I can see what you're seeing. So the download was these two pieces. There we go. And I think I put with the download, I put a picture of the placemat. I'm working on, it's almost done, an actual pattern for the whole thing, so that will be up for sale hopefully next week. So this is your center ball, and generally these are all going to be the same color, but that's up to you. So when you cut out this one, I want you to make note where the red lines are that you need to add a ½ inch. If you add an inch, that's fine too, because the paper isn't long enough to make it as long as it actually needs to be. And rather than put it on two pieces of paper to add a ½ inch on, I thought that that would be okay with you. The other thing I wanted to make mention is, because I believe this is 3 inches wide. Let's see, find a place where I know what I'm doing. Yeah, so it's 3 inches wide. So you can use the grids, because you know I only use Steam Machine Light too, but you can use the grid lines to do your drawing, and you can draw them all right next to each other. And then I would simply, and I save these pieces because you're going to need them. Not today, but you'll need them sometime when you're doing some applique and you need some small pieces. So I'm going to see how this works. So you could take the whole thing and put it right onto the fabric if it's one. Oh, crying out loud. If it's one fabric, but I tend to clean it up a little bit. And I thought while we were waiting, for those of you that might not have traced and cut out, it's pretty quick. And we got a little time. Well, we got about 2 minutes. Hurry, hurry. No, we're all right. Okay, so let me see. We move these out of the way. And I'm just going to move that for a minute. And get my fabric. And I want to be on the wrong side. I don't want to be cutting on that. Okay, so I have a fat quarter, and I have it so the long way is going away from me. So the 20 inch, 22 inch is that way, the 18 is this way. And I really want to try to make sure, let me move my machine for a minute. I really want to try to make sure that I stay on one side so that I have the length left for another project. So if I put it this way, I'd be cutting my fabric right off and I'd have a small piece left. And I find a lot of times I need that little bit longer than that 18. So I try to make sure that I stay in this column here. And let's see if I can turn the camera a little bit. I don't know if I can back up anymore. No. Oh, sorry, I had to move the whole tripod there. Okay, so you can see the whole area. So I know I need this big piece here. And so I've got this little fella sticking out here, so I'm going to cut him down. So I can look, and I either am going to go this way or I'm going to go this way. This obviously takes up less room. So let me see if I can get, I'm trying to do it in the camera, if I can get everything in. And then I'll just stick this piece, I'll probably stick this piece down here. So we'll just cut this little bit off. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to lay down, so let me just check. Anybody has any questions yet? So I wanted to wait and show you, the heck's under there, okay. I try to make the most of my fabric. I try to keep my cutting to a minimum. So before I do anything, I'm going to take the paper off the back. And I want to make sure when I peel it away that the sticky is on the side where the drawing is. And I can come close to the edge, it's okay. And I am going to trim this away because I'm trying to keep as much over here as I can. So generally I don't take that much time when I'm putting things down, but because these are such straight, fairly straight lines, that means I can probably save more of my fabric than I usually can. So see, if I went across this way, and I would have to cut here, do you see how I'd only have this much fabric left? And it would only be 18 inches wide. Or if I'm going saving this, this is 20 inches wide and about the same distance, maybe even smaller. I debated whether to save this or to cut it ahead, but and because I got a straight line here and my fabric's pretty well a straight line, I can go right to the edge. And then I'm just going to put this piece down. And I was going to put that way down here. Okay, so that's how I would do it. And see how I have that 20 inches, and I have 2, 4, 6, 8. I have almost 9 inches, and I'll have even more up here, but I've got a 9 by 20 inch piece left over. Plus, even more because I'll be cutting through here. So go ahead and get your pieces traced and put on your fabric. I just have to run over and give this a quick press. So behave yourselves. Okay, so while I'm doing that, the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing our quilting. So you want to have whatever thread you're going to use for quilting, thread it into your machine. This is a top stitch the whole way, and you're going to need your ruler and a marking pen. So ruler, marking pen. So let's see, I'm working with this color today. So I'm going to use, I think I'll use blue. So get your equipment ready. If you're doing your tracing, relax. Just get your tracing done. Get it onto your background, not your background, I'm sorry, your applique fabric. Everybody doing okay with their tracing? Is everyone done with their tracing? Now, when you cut this out, you can use your rotary cutter if you want to get nice and straight. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, can you see what I did? So these two are supposed to be the same length. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. So you're going to do that sometimes because what I did I copy the wrong one twice? Yes. So I copied we have the, what is it, the top and bottom piece, there's 2 of, and there's one small piece that's the left side. So do you see it? Can you see how? It's kind of hard to see because I do it with light pencil. But I can count my squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can count this squares, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm short. So I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but I didn't. So I'm just going to take a piece that I had left over, and I need to be 3 squares wide. So I'm just going to come here, and I need about, well, let me do it this way. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add on to this bottom piece. I told you those leftovers would come in handy. So have any of you ever done that? You just measured something wrong and made that mistake? So you don't have to draw the whole thing over. I'm just going to add on. And let's see. And I'm just going to, I have a little extra here. I'm just going to cut that off. So can you see? Oh, yeah, I'll do it here. Can you see? I just added on to it. And if there's a little space right here, that's okay. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's better to have a little space than to really overlap it. So I'm just going to press that just for 1 second. And see, that mistake is all fixed. Okay? So it's nice when these little things happen. Christine says, but I already cut that one out. Okay, but I made the mistake. Hopefully you didn't. So it's marked clearly on your sheet that it says trace and cut 2. And then the rest are just 1. And then again, the instructions of adding that 1/2 inch. Everything's clearly marked. So hopefully, Christine, you did trace and cut too. Just hopefully I made a mistake and you didn't. But this is what you do. This is what you do when you, if you drew it too short, in a case like this, if you drew it too short, then you just put another piece on to make it the length it needs to be. And because these are nice straight lines, and you can use your grid that's on your steam machine, it's pretty easy to fix. Okay? So I'm going to set that aside for now, and I'll cut that in a few minutes. So now we're down to, oh, see, it's always helpful when you put things away. So today, let's see if I can, well, I'm reaching from one camera to the next here. So today we're just doing, there you go. We're just doing diagonal in one direction. There, can you see them? They're about 2 inches apart. You see one is here and one is right there. So we're just going one direction today. So I know we've gone sometimes where we've gone, oh, I gotta have it hit the light just right. There we go. There you go. So you can see it. Oh, you can see it there. So they're going to be 2 inches apart. So let me set this one aside. I'm running out of aside places to put things. Now, let me back up again. Sorry. Here we go. So my ruler, this ruler is a little short. So I'm going to use it anyways, just so I can show you what to do if you have a shorter ruler. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I'm on the 45 with my ruler. So if you look on your ruler, look for the 45-degree mark. Okay, so mine has, what does it have? 60, 45, and 30. And they'll be either at one end or both ends, and you want that 45 of the ruler to be in line with this edge. So if I come all the way over here, and I have my 45-degree line that's along the edge of my placemat. So look for your 45, put it along the edge. So if you don't want to be like coming from over here somewhere, so hold your ruler up, look for your 45, put that 45 at the edge of your placemat, at the left side of your placemat. If you're left-handed, you can go to the right side. Okay, I'll give you a second to do that. I'm gonna have my Moxie. Today's class is brought to you by Moxie. I can hear you all going, ew. Let me see if I can put some tools out of the way. Okay, you got your 45 along that edge? Okay, so now I'm going to go a little slow in the beginning, but once we get to stitching, we're going to be moving right along today. So I'm going to draw that line along the edge of my ruler. And my ruler doesn't come all the way down, but I can see my line. Let me make it bigger so you can see it. Let me come in a little bit more. Okay. Oh, all right. See my line right there? You see that right there? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my ruler down, but I want to make sure that no matter how long I have to go, I want to make sure I have 3 inches. See the line right there? I want to have 3 inches of my ruler along that line. Now don't put it on the line, because put your pen on the line and bring your ruler up. And if your ruler is straight along those 3 inches and you're looking at your 45 is still coming down parallel with your left side, then you're good to go. And then I'm just going to slide my ruler down the rest of the way so I can see my line on the side of my ruler. Because and this is a mistake people make. Let me back up a little ways. Here we go. The mistake people make is they put the ruler on the line. Well, that's not the right place because you drew the line next to the ruler. Continue to draw the line next to the ruler. Does that make sense? And that first line is the hardest because after that, we're going to just follow our 2-inch mark. So I'm putting my ruler, the 2-inch, 1, 2, 2 inches is on the line, and I'm going to draw the next line. And now I can just slide my ruler right down the line that I drew before. I don't have to worry about it. But I still want to make sure that my line is at the edge of my ruler. Does that make sense? And I'm just going to go up and do the next one. You know, sometimes having a bigger ruler, I see people struggle sometimes with a bigger ruler. It's just too big and awkward, or they don't have, you know, that much space, or it becomes a difficulty for some people, many of us, and it, you know, throws you off. It throws your thinking off, and then, you know, your pen's giving out the color, it looks like. And then you're kind of discombobulated and things go downhill from there. So use whatever size ruler. If it's easier for you to use a big ruler. Sometimes I switch back and forth. That I might, in the long places, I might use a bigger ruler. And then when I get to the shorter places, I switch back to my smaller ruler because I tend to want to use my smaller ruler. It's easier to handle. It's not in my way. You know, the bigger one I'm always jabbing myself with. And we're just going to continue on. And you know, I call this a sew along because you're sewing along with me. So if I make a mistake, you can see the mistake. You can see how I fix it. Hopefully you won't see me throw something into the trash and say, you know, forget that. Sometimes I might start out making a quilt and then it turns into maybe a table runner, and then it might turn into a placemat, and it might end up being a pot holder. There's a lot of patterns that we like, and sometimes we don't realize. I guess my word for today is sometimes, because I feel like I've used that 10 times already. And sometimes it just is a little harder than we planned on, or the instructions aren't clear enough, and we're practically in tears. And you know, you got 2 options, or 3 options. You can set it aside for a while. Let me say 4 options. You can stop, because we never do it. Stop, and how about we read the instructions the whole way? Because we tend to think we already know what we're doing. Even though we'll say we don't know what we're doing, we don't read all the instructions because somewhere inside of us, we think we know what we're doing. So read the instructions, and I will tell you that sometimes instructions aren't clear until you're actually sewing that part of it. But try to read the instructions first. If that doesn't work, then, I got to remember that I got directional fabric. I got to remember when I put my bow on, I don't want my birds upside down. Read your instructions, see if you can figure it out. If you can't, put it aside for a while. Maybe it's just not your day to do that particular thing. Maybe, you know, it's not the day to be sewing, maybe. So put it aside, and if you just find you're struggling, and you bought a lot of fabric, just think about maybe you can do something different, a different quilt with that fabric. Or you might want to just try to muscle through it as best you can. You know, there's options, but sometimes you just need to take a break. Okay, so does everybody have everything marked? Okay, so I have to move my Moxie again. And I hit a button and got my sound going again. I don't know how I did that. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to quilt. So we need to, let's get the machine down and ready. And let me switch to the other camera. There we go. And remember, walking foot. See if I can get a little more daylight around the machine. I'll try to go a little bit your way. So before I put my walking foot on, because I know I'm not going to sew without my walking foot, but I might sew without getting what stitch I'm going to use. So I want to, let me see. I'm going to use my straight stitch, but I'm going to make it, today I'm going to make my length 3.5. I'm going a little bigger today. I just want to see how it looks. So that's the only thing I need to do. I want my pivot on. So if you have pivot, on some machines your pivot, if you have it, is up in the screen. And I think on there's some machines that it's, I think would be over on this side. On your bigger machines, it tends to be at the bottom left of your big screen. So we're good there. So now let's move the camera over a little bit because I'm gonna, and I waited for you guys. I'm gonna put my walking foot on and I'm gonna try to do it without getting my hands too much in your way. So I gotta take my other foot off. Well, probably would help if I had it on to begin with. Okay, so you know I've told you probably time and time again, don't take your ankle off without a foot being on it, okay? So, pardon my reach. I almost went on the big machine today, but that walking foot's too easy to put on and off, so I wouldn't have had anything to show you. I'm going to put that away, not leave it around somewhere. Okay, so remember that this is a walking foot similar to this, what most machines use. Whether it's a $200 machine or $2,000 machine, unless you have the plug-in walking foot, this is what you use. And you see this piece that's going up and down here, right here? This piece, you see the opening? See that little opening right there? It's going to go on this screw. This is the screw where you tighten and loosen for putting your needle off and on. So it's going to go this. There we go. That screw is going to go right in that little slot. And you have to kind of, that's good English, you want to get that on first. So I don't know if I can get closer that you can see. I know that the light's not there. I'll hold my light over. I'll hold my light. Oh, how's that? I'm holding my light with my arm. Okay, so do you see? This is that little arm. It goes right around this. Here's the needle screw. You see that? Now I've got to move it over. See how it's over now to the left? Because I need it over in order to get. I'm trying to hold this light with my arm. You can see it behind there. Oh. But right here is where, here's the screw for your foot. And can you see right where my thumb is, that little black there? So that's the part that, let me put that down. All right, set my own arm on fire. That's the part that, it's like this, that comes around your, the shaft where your ankle goes on. And I'm just going to push it on. That was a pretty good view. And now I have to hold on to it. I've got to tighten the screw on this side. I'm trying to do it. All right, I'm going to have to get my hands in your way. It's a little cumbersome. Yeah, let me get my arm out of the way. It's a little, oh, okay. So the camera's trying to focus to my arm. That screw is a little difficult to get to. So you're going to need your screwdriver. Because you're going to take that screw out a little bit more than you normally would. But don't take it, for heaven's sakes, don't take your screw all the way out, your screw for your ankle all the way out, unless you really have to. And there are a few feet that you really have to because they don't have a slot. They just have like a hole there. So I want to make sure that I've tightened the screw. It's not a lug nut on your car. Let's not get carried away. I want to double check and make sure that the screw for my needle is tight, not too tight. Again, it's not your lug nut on your car. Let me back up a little bit here. No, back up, Lorraine, back up. There we go. Okay? And we just put it up and down, make sure everybody's happy. We good? Let me check for questions. Okay. Christine made mention that yes, she has two the same size. That is correct. If you look at your paper, this top one right here says trace and cut 2. I traced 1 and I traced 2 of this one. It doesn't say to do that, so you should be fine. So don't keep focusing on that. Check that. You can check that in a little while just to make sure, but I'm sure you're fine. Okay, we're ready to go. We've got our thread that we're going to quilt with is in the machine. I have my regular sewing thread in my bobbin. I've got my pivot on. I have a top stitch needle in, top stitch 8012. I changed my stitch length to 3.5. You change yours to whatever you'd like to do, okay? And what we're going to do is, remember, we're going to start in the middle, or close to the middle. We don't need to lock our stitches because we're going to be trimming this down. We're going to go down, and then we're going to turn and we're going to come back up on each side of the first one we went down, okay? So let me find my foot pedal under all that mess I just made. And I'm going to try to scoot a little closer with my chair. And I'm watching the front of my foot has a little opening like right here. And I'm watching the line going right between the two toes, I guess they would be, of my foot. And I know my machine, this machine is a little loud, so you might want to mute me for a minute or turn down the volume. I can't reach mine. But you notice I'm keeping my hands right here, kind of keeping it smooth. Remember, we only have batting under here, so it's batting in our top. If you started and you put a fabric underneath, just stop, rip your stitches out and just take that back off because we're not doing the same placemat as we did last week. And if you're swearing at me, it's okay. So I'm going to go to the edge. So remember, I came down this way. So here's where I ended. Put my finger right there, spin it all the way around. I'm going to do the line to the right. Here's the stitching, the line to the right, and then I'm going to do the line to the left. So when I get done, I'm going to go all the way down, then I'm going to come back up to this same area and come down on the left side. And we've done this a few times, so I think you're pretty well used to it. If you're not perfectly straight, it's okay, because remember, the lines are going to be gone, the marking lines are going to be gone, no one will ever know. Just do your best. Remember, it's not your prom dress, it's just a placemat. Okay, so I'm at my end, but I'm not turning it because I got to go do my left side. So I'm just going to pull it all the way back. Here's my original, here's my original line. Now I'm going to the left of it. And I'm going to just stop for a second to, and see, fold this over. So you're not jamming it up in here, just fold it over. Be neat. Okay, so there's no questions. No one's yelled at me because they had their back fabric on. Well, you might be yelling at me, but I can't hear you, so that's okay. I'm okay with that. So I'm going a bit faster than I normally would because I don't know if it's worse or better. So for the noise. I mean, I know it makes more noise, but it'll be less time. So remember, we came down on the right, now on the left. So now we're going to go ahead and turn. Okay, and now we're going to go on the right side, and then we're going to go to the left side, which will be, they're getting further away from each other now. So you'll see in a minute. The pedal's getting away from me. Okay, so stop. If you don't have pivot, so pivot is the needle goes down, the foot comes up automatically. If you don't, just reach back, just put your foot up for, halfway so that the fabric can relax. Put it back down and head on. This machine sounds loud even to me. Might be time for a new needle. Okay, came down the right. Now I got to come down the left. So I'm just going to scoot back and go over to the, and I'm going to be left of wherever I stitched last. You'll see it. Okay, so now remember, we did a right, we did a left, now we're going to twirl around. Sounds like a square dance, right, left, and twirl around. Do-si-do, and head on down the line. Okay, came down the right, I gotta scoot back and come down the left. Again, fold my fabric over if I need to. Don't scrunch it up because it just makes it all wrinkly and then you have to go iron. Stop if you need to, take a minute. There's no race to get to the other end in one breath. Okay, so now at this end, I only have one more line left, so I'm just going to finish this end up. Okay, so now I'm going to spin around, and it doesn't matter if I can't remember if I was coming down or going up, it's okay. I'll start down, then I'll go up and down on this side. It's not that detrimental. If you've already finished your quilting, then go ahead and press it to get the marks off. Just press it lightly. I never can tell if people are ahead of me or catching up. And I just have one more. Okay, and now I just have to go press my marks out without tipping the camera over. So let me switch back to the other camera. Okay. Okay, so we're all quilted. So you can finish up with your quilting, take your time. I'm going to cut these pieces out. So if you want to watch for a minute, let me move a little closer if I can. So I drew these lines straight corners, because I didn't know what people would want to do. So if I want a curved corner, all I'm going to do is just come to this end, and I'm about maybe 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch away, and I'm just going to curve over to the next line. And you probably can't see it yet. Let me get some distance here. So can you see it just has a little bit of curve to it. Don't keep curving and curving and curving and cutting and cutting, and then then all of a sudden you won't have any ribbon left. So while you're stitching away on your quilting, the more I rush, the more I get tangled up here. I'm not worried about following my lines exact. I generally, when I draw lines, I generally will cut outside the lines, just outside of them. So when I come to this point, in order to get my point, I just have to turn my fabric, leave my scissors where they were, and then just go up the next side. And you notice I don't move my scissors around, I'm moving the paper around. So here's my middle. If you want this to be less, come in skinnier, just come down further with these lines. So let me see if I can do that, so you can see what I mean. So I want to have less in here. I'm just going to come around. Well, I didn't do the straightest job. But see, I just came in more. Can you see the, what can I put it on? Oh, hold on. See the difference? I cut that little part out. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I wanted to show you how you can do that. I just have to make a match. And I'm not going to worry about if the top and the bottom are exactly the same. And I curved around only because it was just easier. And who knows, I might have messed the whole thing up. But I wanted you to see that you can adjust this however you want your bow to be. So see, now I come in a little more. I feel like I'm lopsided now. Oh, we'll see how it works out. It's a bow. You know, you can't make all your bows the same. I'm trying to show you the different things that you may do, and then you think you've, made a mess of things, or you can't change something. You can change anything you want to change. So when I'm cutting, I notice that, can you see how this is pulling away? So I didn't iron that enough. Now, the sticky is on this part, so I'm okay. So sometimes it's just the release paper, the last paper, that's just, I've moved it around so much it's ready to come off. So if you feel it, if you have a piece that, and you see how the fabric is here, and the paper's over here, just feel your fabric. If it's got sticky all over myself. If you got the stickies on the fabric, you're good. If it's not, take it back to the iron, push this back down, go back to the iron, and just, hold it down, count to 10, and do it again. It can all be fixed. And yes, you can use your rotary cutter and do it nice and perfectly straight. And if you need to, mark these pieces. So this would be, what was it? This would be the top, and then this one's the bottom. So mark them before you cut them out if you need to. And, there's no, you don't need to apologize because you need to mark it. I generally always mark mine, because I always think I think I'm going to remember, and I don't. If you are going to make a bigger placemat, like this one, what is this one, 12 by 18? So let's say you're going to make yours 14 by 18. You don't need to change this part, though you could. You just need to make these pieces longer. And I don't remember now mine looks bigger than 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oh, see, I'm 14. Oh, that's what we're supposed to be, 14. Oh, let me check. Now, before we put our pieces on, because we did our quilting, we need to we're going to trim this now to 12 and a half by 18 and a half. And I can't remember, if I made the instructions for the back piece 12 by 18, then you're going to trim it. If your back is 12 by 18, then make it 12 by 18. Because I'm thinking now I forgot to put the half on there. because normally it's 12 by 18. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this one to 12 by 18, and I think I can do it right here so you can see how I go about that. So I am going to need a bigger ruler. And I'm going to use a bigger ruler, even though I don't have much space here. I'm going to use a bigger ruler because I don't want to move my ruler around, slide it down if I don't have to. And I apologize ahead for the glare. So the only thing I want to do right now is I want to make sure that I got everything fairly even. So my line across the top should be even in the bottom. If it's not quite, get it as close as you can. And I'm just going to trim some off. So I'm not trimming to size yet. I'm going to turn it around the other side. And I do use my mat at this point to try to line everybody up, top and bottom. And I'm really just getting the edges. I want to get all four sides so they're straight. I got to pull that away from my machine. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, I'm going to have to go on an angle here. So you wouldn't be on an angle. You would line up. Oh, I got enough room. You would line up with your mat across the top and the bottom. Maybe not the left side, but the top and bottom. And I'm going to put my ruler on. So my ruler is straight across the top and straight in the bottom. I just have to turn because I don't have room enough to cut. So I don't want you to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is just going around and getting all four sides so that everybody's nice and straight. So I'm lining up across here, I'm lining up here, and I'm lining up along the bottom. And then I'm putting my ruler on so that it's straight across top and bottom. Okay, so now I know that I can trim anywhere now, left, right, top, bottom, half on one side, half on the other. It doesn't matter because I've evened everything up. Everything is nice and straight. So I'm looking at my my fabric, and I'm looking to see what part I might want to keep. So I might want to make sure that this bird is well in there, so I might not want to take any off that side. Where over in this side, I got a lot of emptiness, though I do have a bird down here. So I'm going to take it from one side. So I need to be, I need to be 18, which is my whole mat here. So the first thing I want to do is not have my ruler in my hand. So I want to make sure that I line up across the top. I'm lining up on the left side, and I'm lining up on the bottom. If I'm not even, then I need to trim until I get even before I start taking everything, taking a big chunk off of here. So if you're crooked on one of these sides, go back to how we did it the first time, taking a little off until everybody is nice and straight. Okay. So I'm going to be at 18. Did I say 18? Yes. And if you haven't cut your back, make it 18.5. So why don't you make a note that the best trim is 12.5 by 18.5, because this time we're going to have a seam allowance. And you need that 1/2 inch for a seam allowance. If you've already cut your back, then that's fine. You're only going to be off a little bit. So I'm going to go to 18 because that's all the mat I've got. So normally you'd be on your mat, and your mat would be going longer left and right, or turn it so it is, or you have a bigger mat. And don't pull your mat away from the edge like I did. Do it at your edge if you can, or without going off the edge. I mean, don't turn it on the angle like I did. Okay, so now I'm double checking. So I'm 18 inches across, and I've got a nice selection of my birds there. So now I got to think about this way is going to be 12 or 12 and a half. So I'm looking at this, and you see how I got these two little birds right here? Well, I don't want to cut their heads off, or if I cut too close, I'm going to sew their heads off. I've got nothing on that end, so I'm going to turn this around. And again, I'm making sure it's straight with the mat, and I want to be 12 or 12 and a half, depending on if you've cut your back already. So I'm going to be 12. I'm going to be 12. That's good. I can act like I'm 12. Or you can take a little bit off of each side. I just wanted to show you when you have a fabric that, you know, like this is, with the birds on it, that, you know, you might want to look around and see what your favorite part is that you might want to keep. And again, if you want this to be 14 by 20, you want this top and your back to be a ½ inch bigger than what you want it finished. So if you want to make a note of that, so when you start out, say you wanted this to be 14 by 18, finished, you would cut this piece and your batting, I would say 2 inches bigger, so you would cut it 16 by 20 before you quilt. So you cut your batting and your top 14 by 20, then you would quilt it, and then you would trim it down to, what did we say? 12. 12, so if you wanted it to be 14 by 18 finished, you would be 16 by 20. So 16 by 20 for the top and the batting. After you quilt, you'll trim it to 14 and a half by 18 and a half, and do your back fabric the same size. That make sense to everybody? Let me see if there's any questions. See who I've confused. Almost confused myself there. Oh, hi, Rhonda. Okay? So this can be whatever size you want it to be. If you want it to be a mug rug size, you can do it that size. Whatever makes you happy is fine. It's fine with me. So let's get all of our pieces. Put the scissors away. And so we're going to take our top and bottom pieces first. So we're just going to take the paper off. And you should feel sticky on this side. If you don't, and it's over here, go close it up, go back and iron, count to 12, 14, move, count to 12, 14. Here's my little add-on piece. And see, my add-on piece looks just like I never added on. You can look at your ends, and neither end is going to end up showing. I'm just going to eyeball where I'm putting this, so I am about, right at this moment, I am 1, 2, 3, 4 inches from the left side, and I'm parallel with the top. Okay? I'm going to take the bottom one. That's one thing that's nice about this is your ends aren't going to show, so they don't have to be perfect. And I'm going to line it up. I'm using my mat now because I've got this even on my mat, so it'll help you if you have your mat. Now this is the left side, it's the shortest one. If it won't come undone, if you just give it a little wrinkle, it generally will help the paper release. And I'm just going to line it up so that, let me see, here we go. I'm going to line it up so I'm even onto each of those top and bottom. But I want to be straight with this left side. Now, mine's barely touching these. It doesn't have to be. It only has to be covered by this. And you know, I cut into this, and you have to be careful with that. If you cut into the bow part more, I would just make these pieces a little bit longer, but we're okay. And now we're going to put on this side. And make sure you leave this hanging so it doesn't stick to itself, because there's nothing more annoying than when it sticks to itself. And I want to make sure I'm at this end and I'm lined up. I got to stand up. I want to be lined up with this piece over here. So if you feel the need that you want to have your ruler there, and I'll tell you in a second how far down I am from the top. I am, I'm about 4 1/4 down from the top. And again, it's an eyeball thing. Whatever makes your eyeball happy. Oh. Okay, so I've got those on like I like them. Now, you can do this placemat so this is one long piece, and I would still do these separate. If these are separate and this is one long piece, the separates go down first, the long piece goes on. If you want to make a real bow on it, that you would make the bow and put it on top, you can do that. It's just that I decided that if it was a placemat, the real bow wouldn't work. Now, if you have placemats that are, I just pulled my piece off here. If you have placemats that are just decorative and you don't use them, you know, to eat on, then you can put that big bow on there or put a bow on it. It's up to you. I just did it this way so that it can actually be a real placemat. And then I'm just going to look, and I'm going to set this on, and I just want to make sure that it's all ribbon fabric. I can't see like this doesn't show, or this doesn't show. The left and right have plenty of room. Okay. So now when I take this one off, I want to be a little more careful because you're going to have 4 floppy ends. Remember how we had our tree, our Halloween tree? So I just want to, I'm going to leave it hanging, but I'm going to hang it down, pull my paper down, but I'm going to hold on, I'm holding on to these 2 pieces. And I don't think there's a top and a bottom, you know, which one's on the top, which one's on the bottom, doesn't much matter. You decide. Just make sure that you don't have any of your background fabric peeking through. Okay? Okay, so again, you can put it directly in the middle. Let me see, am I directly in the middle? I think I almost am directly in the middle. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm a little up. So you can have yours a little up. You can have it in the middle. Let's see what. I must like this distance because look, I did the exact same thing again. So mine's a little bit, just a tad higher. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm like 4 3/4 here, or 4 1/2 here, 4 and 4 there. So you have it however you want. If you wanted to put your bow in the middle, this piece would be shorter, and this piece would be longer. So once you have one done, and you're going to do another one, you go, okay, I really want to have the bow in the center. So think about, okay, my bow's going to be here. I've got to have this fabric here has got to come over more. So it's probably 2 pieces that go to the middle. Does that make sense to everyone? So you might like your bow in a different place, or how you have your ribbons in a different place. You might want it dead center. You might want this dead center and this on the side. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so once you have it the way you want, you're going to press it. So let me just see if there's any messages. So if anybody has any messages, I'm just going to give mine a quick press so we can get down to stitching. You're going to change to the thread that you want to use for your bow. I suggest, and it's entirely up to you, but I suggest that you use a coordinating, let me see if let me go to the other camera because that might be easier. Hold on. Okay, let's see if we can see here. There we go. I would suggest that you use a color that is not a big, no, this one isn't a big contrast because there's red in it. Because you need to separate this part of the bow from this part of the ribbon. So you need something. If it was the same color and it blended, this would look like all one piece. So see how you can see the different parts with the red? Okay, so same needle. We're going to be taking our walking foot off, and we're going to put on our candle wicking or applique foot. So let me show you what that looks like. So you remember this one, all open in the middle. They make a plastic one and they make a metal one. Mine's a metal one, but see how this is open the whole way. Okay, if you don't have that and you have a baby lock, then you would use your end foot, because remember, we need that tunnel in the back for the stitches to go through. You pick what thread you want. I'm using a machine embroidery thread. It's shiny and a little bit thicker. So remember, when you press, you're following the manufacturer's instructions for whatever fusible web you're using. I'm using Steamer Seam Light 2. I would count to about 14. I went a little faster because you guys are probably ahead of me now. So you know, count to 14, count to 14, count to 14, blah, blah, all over. Make sure then you turn and go the other direction and turn and go the other direction. Because remember, your iron has those, generally has those holes on the bottom of the iron, and where the holes are, it's not doing anything. So let's get our foot changed. I really should have my longer screwdriver for here, but I always know where this screwdriver is. And I just want to loosen the screw just enough to get the foot off. And this one does take a little extra because you have that arm that's over the needle bar. Come on. I'm trying to go oh so careful. Here we go. Okay, so walking foot is off. Regular foot back on. Well, your ankle back on with your candle wicking foot if you have it, or your open toe applique foot. Remember I told you there's a difference between an open toe foot and an open toe applique foot. An open toe foot is when you're using your feed dogs or down, you're not using them. Oh, so a lot of you have this screwdriver. So this is the screwdriver part. Well, I just put this up on my bobbin winder, where my bobbin goes on my bobbin winder. And that way I always know where it is. So we're cutting our thread at the top, pulling it through the bottom. Is everyone all set to go? I'm going to turn this a little bit and show you what stitch I'm going to use. See if we can get better light there. There we go. So let me get my thread on. If you don't have if you have a needle threader that has a button here, you don't need to worry about whether your needle is up, down, or where it is. But on this one I do, so I'm going to do my needle up, down. So my needle's in the right place, and I'm going to make sure my foot is up. Okay, so we're all threaded. Now, I'm going to use the, let me see, the blanket stitch. So I don't think it's in this part of my machine. No, so I have to go back to, this is the screen that gives me all the stitches in categories. And I think it's in number 2. Oh, there it is right there. Number 3. So it is 2-03. I'm going to make my stitch length longer. So I'm going to try 3.5, and I think my width is going to be 3. Now, normally, let me see if I have a little piece of fabric. So if I want to see how this is, I need to make sure that I test on a piece of fabric that has batting on it, because that's what I'm sewing on. So I'm going to do a little test, because that's what you should be doing. When you do a test, make sure you end with your needle on the right side, right hand side, so that you're ready to go when you take off. So can you see it? So that looks pretty good. Now this is I don't use this stitch all that often, the buttonhole stitch, because it's thicker. But in this case, because what happens is it goes forward, back, forward, over and back. Forward, back, forward, over and back. And so the stitching is pretty pronounced. And that's what I want on this, because this is sort of decorative. Now I could use a regular decorative stitch here as well if I wanted to, instead of a buttonhole stitch. So if I wanted to use a decorative stitch, I'm going to come in here and let's see. Let's just take a stroll around for a minute. I think that let me come back out, see what's in this one. I want to pick something that doesn't take too long. So I'm going to pick this one, which is 6-20. And it's like a little asterisk. And I don't think it's going to, yeah, it doesn't let me change it. So I better check and see that it's not too big. Because this is big, long, straight lines of applique stitching, you can get away with that. But this might be too big. But I want to try a couple so that you can see them. So you see that? Now that's pretty. It's going to take a while, but it's pretty. Let's go back and see how my stitches are still there. So I want to, let me see, what were we in? 3. And it says, do I want to get rid of them? Yes. And I'm going to try, I think this is the same exact one. Let's see what else there is. Yeah, I think this is really the same one. Maybe different. But in here, I can adjust it. Be careful when you adjust decorative stitches because they may not look the same as what they did originally, okay? So now I'm going to show you something. So let me turn this and let me back it up just a, back it up just a, wrong way. That's as far back as I can go. Hold on, let me back up here. I'm caught on my trash can. Hold on. I'll try not to make you too dizzy. Let me get the light over there more. Okay, so if you have this button on your machine, you see there, you see that button right there? It's got a little light that comes on. So this, when your machine is not running, not stitching, is what you use to lock in place. So I hold it and I count to 3, have the needle go down 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and let go, and I've stitched in place, and I can do that at the end. But this has a magical button part to it too. So let me see if I can show you. So I'm going to pick that same stitch that's similar to this one, because you have to have a decorative stitch for it to work. I'm going to put on my lock and cut. Okay? And you don't have to, but I'm going to show you because it's magic. It's magical. Okay, let me turn this a little more. Okay. So I'm going to start sewing. So it's doing this decorative stitch. And let's just say, okay, I want to end with a whole decorative stitch. While it's running, I want to push that button, and the light came on. And what it did is it finished the stitch. Because I hit the buttons over here, it locked it, and then it cut it so that I end with a whole decorative stitch. Okay? So let me do that again. I'll just do it for a minute. I want to make sure, I'm not sure that ended with a whole decorative stitch. While it's running, I need to push that button. Is it letting me? So this one's not letting me do that on this one. It didn't end. So I have to go into my settings and see if I have a setting off. But that's what that button is for on any of the machines that have this button. On your decorative stitches, but you've got to do it while it's running. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go back to my blanket stitch. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to go back and get this one. And I'm going to make it longer, 3.5. I'm going to make it 3. Okay, we're ready to start? So I'm going to switch us back over. So when we're stitching this, we're going to stitch the straight ones first and make sure you lock at the beginning and lock at the end. Lock at the beginning and end, and you're coming up to where the bow starts. The same thing here, the same thing here, same thing here. That's what you're going to do first. Then you'll go around with your decorative stitch. I mean your blanket stitch, or whatever stitch you're using. So you can see, all that. So I did these first. So all my straight, oh look, I didn't do this ribbon. Isn't that funny? I missed it. So you're going to do all your straight ribbons first. Then you're going to come all the way around. And then what I did is, and remember this is the longer one because I already cut mine off. Oh, let me get on the other camera because I think you can see better up close. Here. Then what I did is I stitched. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. I stitched the center like it was the knot. Now this one was long. So that's why I thought maybe if you come in a little, but you'll have to see. So I stitched around like it was a knot, and then I just brought this line, because remember we stitched here to here, so then I just brought this line in so you could define this piece of the bow, and then I went to the other side and brought this line in, and I mean into the knot part. Let me see if you can you see it better that way? Let's see if I can hold it. I'm having trouble holding it and pointing at the same time. There we go. So this is, I stitched around for my knot of my bow. Then I came in, because remember, we're going to go along the outside. I just came in from this, where this corner is. I came in until I reached the knot, and then I did the same thing on the opposite side. Do they line up exact? No, they don't. But do you really notice it? No, you don't. So if you want to take a, let me see if I can get that so that you can, if you want to take a picture of it, let's see. How's that? Wait a minute. I'm going to hold it still. So there we go. So if you want to take a picture of that, because we probably won't get all of our stitching done. So I'll just hold it for a minute more. And let me see if I can move it a little bit so you can see like one side. Yeah, let me do, I'm trying to, okay, try that. Just so you can see this line coming in. Or you can just go around the outside and be done with it. I just stitched different things so that you could see it. And if you don't like it, take it out. It's okay. It's perfectly okay. Okay? We good on? Oh, here's a good close-up. How about this one? Okay, pictures taken? All right. So let's see. So we've still got a bit more time because we've only been at it for an hour. So we're going to, I'll switch back now. So we can go ahead and start our stitching so we can stitch together in case you have any questions while we're together. And then what I want to address is how to finish this. And this one's going to be easy. So you're going to have your back fabric is the same size as this. Once you get all your stitching done, just make sure all your edges are still nice and straight. Then have your backing the same size. You're going to put your backing down. Let's see if I have mine handy. I did have it handy. I wrinkled it all up. You're going to put your back fabric down so your right sides together. Okay, and these aren't the same fabrics, it doesn't matter. Okay, and what you're going to do is, we have to pick a place to start. So we don't want to start along the top, and we really don't want to start along the bottom. I tend to go to the, I had to shove everything out of the way. I tend to go to the left side. And what I do is, and when I do this, I'll stop so you can take a picture of it. Because we really won't have enough time to do it all together. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take 2 pins, and I'm going to put them, I'm going to take my other place, let me take my other placemat out so I don't pin 2 placemats together. So I'm just going to turn this so you can see it. So this is the left side of the placemat. So I don't want to start where the ribbon is, or start with the, oh, you know what? Yeah, so I don't have enough room through here to leave an opening, because I don't want to, this is double fabric plus steamer seam, so I don't want to be folding that over. So normally I would go to that left side. So in this case, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go to the bottom right, where I have this big stretch of plain fabric. And I'm gonna start stitching going that way. I'm gonna come down around this way. So I'm gonna put 2 pins right together. Oh, not crossed over. Okay, so do you see my 2 pins? So I have my 2 pins right together, and I do this always the same. And so when I see 2 pins, I know I stop stitching. Then I'm going to measure over about, how big of an opening do you think you need? 3 inches? Yeah, let's go 3.5. You can go 4 if you want to, but I'm just going to put 1 pin at that 3.5. Because that's where I'm going to start. And then I would probably, even though I'm using pins here, I would probably clip my way around the rest of the way. And I want to make sure I keep smoothing it out, and it's even on the left, even on the right. Your fabric backing should be the exact same size as your placemat. If it's not, trim it to fit, because you're going to use this for your seam allowance. So I would clip all the way around. So where I have my pins, there, see my pins? So I know always when I see 2 pins together, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to start here. So I'm just going to, so what I'll do is I'll move this pin down a little bit, so that when I put this under my needle will be here. I don't want to come down on top of my pin. So I'm going to sink my needle, put my needle down here, and get this pin out of the way. I want to make sure I do 3 forward, 3 back for a good strong tie, because you're going to be pulling this whole placemat through this hole. So I would go 3 forward, 3 back, and then go. And I'm going to sew all the way around, all the way around. And when I get here, this is where I'm stopping. Am I going to stop on top of the pins? No, not. But it gives me a place to go to. I want to be away from this corner, so I don't want to stop way over here, because I'm too close to the corner. So I want to come over to here, and again, take my pins out, do a couple more stitches, 3 back, 3 forward to lock it. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Let me check. Christine is asking, are we doing a straight stitch? A straight stitch to do a seam? Of course. Is that what you mean? Of course you would do a straight stitch. And at your regular tension, your 2.5, maybe 3.0, but it's a regular seam. If your stitch is small, go to the 3.0 only because you're going through batting and stuff. But you don't want it bigger like we did with the quilting because that's too gappy for a seam. Okay? And Christine, you're using the buttonhole stitch or blanket stitch or whatever stitch you want for your applique. So when we're done stitching here, and when we're stitching this, we're using, just like you would in regular sewing, you're going to use a thread color that blends with this. So a light gray, a white, off-white, something like that. You don't want to use your red or your green or whatever you were doing your applique with. When this is done, before you turn it right side out, there's going to be a seam here. You know what? Let me change my thread, and I'll just stitch a little bit here because I want you to see how to iron this. So let me do that. You guys go ahead and do your applique stitching. Let me change my thread, and I'm just going to stitch a little way in each direction so that you can see how we're going to handle this area right here. Okay, so you go ahead and do your applique stitching. And I'm going to change my thread. And I'm going to change my foot because I don't need my candle wicking foot for this. So take the time to change your feet to the proper foot. I'm going to use my J foot. That's my main standard foot. I can keep my top stitch needle in, that's fine. Can I hear you guys? Are you stitching? Am I hearing the stitch? I'll ask Lynn. Lynn will tell me. Lynn, are you doing your decorative stitching? I know Lynn. She'll probably say yes even if she's not. No, she'll tell me. Well, she must be over there at her machine stitching. I didn't hear from her. Okay, so I'm not going to show you my stitching because you know how to stitch. You know how to stitch a seam. Oh, let me do this. Let me at least do this. Hold on. Okay. Let me see if I can get over closer here. You bring all these lights around so that you get, the machine casts its own shadow. So here's my pins where I'm stopping. Here's my pin where I'm starting. So I'm just going to bring it up. My foot's up, my needle's up. I can see my pin is right near where my needle's going to drop. I just have to take my pin out, put my foot down. I want to make sure I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance or somewhere thereabouts. If you're more comfortable with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then you need to cut your fabrics bigger. And if you use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to trim it to a 1/4 inch. Okay, so I want to make sure. Can't grab my, there we go. So remember I said I want to go, so I got to, I almost started stitching with not a straight stitch. Okay, so I have on my machine the setting to do 3 forward and 3 back. If you don't, excuse me, you're going to go count 3 forward or 4, hit your back, 1, 2, 3, 3 or 4, it's okay, don't do 2. And then I'm going to head off. And And I'll even come down to the corner for you. I don't want to go too far because remember I got that one spot that I need to fix on my applique. So I'm going to come down, and of course I'd be hanging on, but I'm trying to let you see. I'm going to come down slowly. When I get about 1/4 of an inch away, because I'm using a 1/4 of an inch seam, I want to turn my placemat on the angle. So I came in from over here, I'm going out from over here, so I'm kind of on the kitty corner. And I'm going to take 1 stitch. And then I'm going to turn. And if you need to, mark where your 1/4 inch goes. And I'm going to stop here. And I'm just going to lock it. So you would go all the way around until you came. So I'm going to pretend so I'm going to come up a little bit so I can do 1 more corner for you. So I'll pretend I'm coming around the last corner. I'm going to get about that 1/4 inch away. And I'm going to turn and I'm going to go, oh yeah, I'm not even close to a 1/4 inch. I'm like 1/2. So I'm going to go a little further. And I'm going to turn it so I'm on the angle. And do 1 stitch. And then turn. And as I come up to where my 2 needles are, I'm going to come up. I can roughly see where my 2 needles, where I took them out. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go back 3 or 4, it's all right. I come forward 3, and then I'm going to go back about 5. And the reason I do that is so that I don't have the ends of my threads right at the end there, right at the end of my stitching. So now, the end of my, where are they? The end of my threads, here's where I stop stitching. The end of my threads are back here. Okay, let's switch to the other camera. And let's see if I can come in closer. Turn a little. Oh. Okay, where am I? Oh, here. All right, let's back it up a little bit. Okay, so where am I? Where am I? Oh, I'm over here. Couldn't tell. So here's where I stopped. Here's where I started. At the ironing board, I want to press this seam open. Okay, so I'm just going to come along here this whole way. And where the stitches are, I can only go back as far as the stitches are. So I'm going to do that on this side. Let me do it with my with an iron here. And you're going to do it with your ironing at your ironing board. Let's see if I can get over a little more. I got the back up because oops, sorry. There we go. All right, so this is to the right side of where I stopped. Here's to the left of where I started. And boy, I didn't take a good 1/4 inch seam there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm pushing my seam allowance of this fabric back. See how I did it here? When I do that, I have a line to go by for this part that's not stitched. So if I do that and I press this, so you're going to go to your ironing board, press it, little steam, and then let it cool. So if you press it and it wants to bounce back again, if you have a clapper or even this wooden thing, and after you take the iron away and you just put the wood on it, so if you have a tailor's clapper, I think it's called, because you want it to cool in that position, okay? And then if you do the same thing on the, turn it over and do the same thing on the other side, when you turn this right side out, you know how you have trouble folding that over to hand stitch it closed? Well, it'll already be folded over for you. See how it's folded? And then you would do this side the same. If that batting is giving you a problem, just trim out the batting in the seam allowance in that area where you're going to be turning the fabric to hand stitch it closed. Okay, has everybody got that? So let me see. I'm gonna put this right here, and let me see if I can zoom the camera down so you can take a picture. There we go. So see how I've pressed this back? So if you want to take a picture of that, I know it's not pressed. There we go. Okay, then you'll also do this other side. So in essence, what you're doing is you're kind of pressing the seam open, except you can't press it open like this. So then you do the other side. Mostly it's going to be this, let me back up again. Mostly it's going to be this first side, because this side you can match up to this one. But if you want to trim out your batting, so I would just come in, and I know you've got quilting stitches there, so you just kind of go around them. So that now, see, I trimmed out that batting a little bit, not too much, because that fabric is going to lay right over the part where you trimmed. And then if you press this, see how the two pieces look so nice? If you press this, before you turn it right side out, it's much easier. But at least do this top side. So let's see if I can get another. Okay, so if you need to take a picture, there's one part. So I'll wait a minute. Okay, so Christine is asking stitch, stitch, blanket stitch. So maybe that's which stitch is the blanket stitch? Well, let me see. I think on your machine, Christine, it tells you it's called the blanket stitch. So it stitches straight and then takes a bite stitch to the left and stitches straight. So it looks like a ladder, but with no ladder on the left side. So the right side of the ladder and the rungs and no left side of the ladder. And I'll do a picture of it on my screen in a second. Okay, so everybody has a picture of that if they need to. And then look here where I trimmed out the batting, and you don't want to go below your stitching, so you would start here. And if you have to take you want to be careful where your quilting stitches are, because you don't want to take them out too far, because there's nothing holding them. So I would take out between them. So I would do this, and be careful not to get your fabric. So see, this one's probably down a little more than it should be. So you should be about like that one is. So let me point to this one. And you can go ahead and take a picture if you want to. I know some of you, it's much easier if you have a picture. Okay? Then you want to just press all the way around, because whenever you stitch, you press all the way around, and then turn it right side out and press again. And then you can stitch around the outside if you want to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on, sometimes I don't like the way it looks, depending on what I'm doing. I probably wouldn't on this one. So, okay, so Christine is no and no, so I'm going to just go ahead and show the the blanket stitch one more time. So let me just get this up a little bit. And the blanket stitch looks like that one. Oh, let me take the one that's blue. And I know there's glare there, the camera's glaring back. Oh, let me see if I can do it this way. So if I get that back and come in, there we go. Okay? This is a blanket stitch. This is an applique stitch. This applique stitch, I believe, has 3 stitches straight, then the bite, 3 stitches. That's too many for me. If you go on some of the bigger machines, it has an applique stitch that is 2 stitches and then a bite, and 2 stitches and a bite. That's what I use for applique. But in this case, I want to have more definition of the edges for that ribbon, so I would use the blanket stitch, and I would probably go 3 inches on my width and 3.5 on my length. And what did I do with that sample now? I've lost it. And you're going to do a sample and try it and see what you like. Oh, here it is. So it would look like, oh, hold on, let me back this up now. Oh. Let me back up a little bit here. It would look similar to that. Can you see it? Oh, see, I keep making a shadow. It would look like that. And see how it's that much thicker. Let me show you on. Oh, I have to unpin the one I sewed closed. Here, hold on. It would look like that. Now, you may want a longer bite. So if you want a longer bite, my width would go, I'd go back to the 3.5. The bite is the part that comes in to onto the applique. Straight stitch and then bites in. Oh. Oh, there, you can see it. You can see it really good there. See it? Okay? So, is everybody doing all right? Okay, so I'm just going to wait a minute because I know you have a bit of stitching to go and do. And I know, you know, watching mine is like watching paint dry. Let me go ahead, because I have this silver fabric on. So let me go ahead and change to my red thread, and you can see the contrast and see if it's something that you like. The nice thing about seeing what other people do is you can see whether you like it or not. Let them experiment. I always say, so if you're first in class, you don't get to see what everybody else is doing. But if you're not as fast as everybody, then you can see what they're doing before you get there to decide what you want to do. Because first done isn't always best done. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at the 3.5, and I know I want a longer length. So I'm going 3.5 width, 3.5 length. And I already cut my thread. Pardon my hands in front of your screen. Okay, and I want to do needle up down because I can't remember if I did. And that just puts my needle in the right place for my threader. Unless I have the threader with a button over here, and then I don't have to bother. So if you have one of the bigger machines, your button over here to thread, it doesn't matter where your needle is, your foot is, doesn't matter. Okay, so let me get my stuff out of my way. I'll turn a little more this way if I can. So I just want you to know that I'm sitting like left of the end of the machine. So if you see my head come in your way, so I need to go. I'm going to start right where these two fabrics meet. So that's my ribbon coming out, and this is my this is my bow. So I'm gonna, just like we did. Last week we did a lot of up close for the applique. And let me see if I can bring this light around more to give you a little more light. Okay, so I sunk my needle down where I want it to be, put my foot down, and I'm going to stitch in place because I need it to lock. Okay, and then I'm going to so my needle, when it's going straight, is right at the very edge of my applique fabric. And normally I would have my hands here. I'm just trying to keep them out of your way. And I will stop every now and again just to make sure my fabric is relaxed. If you need to, lift your foot. And I want to make sure I end not on the bite, not with my needle to the left. I want it to the right, so when I start again, I'm in the right place. And some of your machines have a back to the beginning button for that. I don't have it right here on this one. Make sure I lock it. And then, so see the pretty definition of that? Can you see? Oh. So I kind of like that. To see how it, and again, it's personal preference. So see how it looks next to the cardinals. Now, what did I hit? Stop hitting your buttons. Here we go. Oh. Can you see that all right? Looks kind of funny in the camera. So let me switch back to the other camera. Okay, now you can see it there now, see? So I think it gives it some nice, oh, that's a little too far. I think that gives it some nice definition to the ribbon. I thought about of doing it in green just for it to, just stand out different because you got a lot of red already going on. If I did it in the silver or the black, it'll show it. It may show enough, but when I come into this section here, let me do this section. This will be the last section I do so that you can see this is the ribbon, this is the bow, but you can't see the difference. Now, do you need to see it to know it's a bow? No, you could just go around, a little bit, but I want to see it, so I'll start at one corner and then go to the other, just so you can see it. So again, I'm going to sink my needle using my wheel at that end, lock my stitch, and I don't mind telling you, it's a little hard to see when the two colors are together. So if you need to draw a little line or something with your marking pen, go ahead and do that. Make it easy on yourself. Oop, I went off kilter while I was talking. And remember, I have to turn. I don't want to turn when I'm on the bite. I want to make sure my needle's back to the right. And then I'm going to turn halfway, and I'm going to kind of hold the fabric so I don't stitch too far and get a bite. And then I'll turn with a bite, and then I'll make sure. Did I stop before I was supposed to? Oh, now I gotta look. I think I did. I stopped before I was supposed to. So let me cut this, and let me make a mark. I did. I followed a swirl. So see, that can happen to you. So let me make a mark. So I'm going to pull out a few. I just got to pull out 2 or 3 stitches. That's kind of funny, because I could feel the seam or the edge of the bow, and it was further away. I'm like an inch away from where I need to be. So let me do this so that you can see to do the same thing. Because this black on black kind of thing is, so let's, let me see if you can see. Okay. So can you see? So there's my stitching. Can you see? Now, let me try another color. What other color have I got? Let's try another color. I can see it clearly here, but you're not seeing it that clear on the. No, that's too dark. Now, let me try the pink seems to work the best. Let me just see if I can make it big enough. Because you really don't want to scrub your marking pen into your fabric, because then it's just. All right, I think you can see there's a little V right there, and then so it goes this way, and then I marked a line right here where that point is, and then you can see a line going down kind of faintly, going along here. You see it? Trying to see what's the best way to. I'm making my own shadow. Oh, there. So you can see this one coming down, and then there's that one going over. It looks like a shadow, but it's actually the mark. And I drew a line going this way, right where I need to turn. So let me try that again. So I can follow my line now. I can see it easily. Let me see if you can see it. There we go. See that line? You can see that line right there? See it? It looks like it might be a shadow, but that's the actual line. And then you can see it going this way. Talk about tipping the whole camera over. Hopefully you can see it. I'm glad that happened, because that way if it happens to me, it's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to all of us. So I had a bite right in the right place, so I was able to turn right around while I was on the straight. And I can easily see that line that I marked. And I'm going to stop there. And I normally wouldn't stop because it's hard to get back into the right place. So see how it defines that? Let's go over to the other camera. So see how, let me get rid of some of these. Look, I made a mess everywhere now. Got all the pens out. So let me come in a little ways and move this over. So now see how you can now see where the bow is separate from the ribbon. And of course you're going to go all the way around, but I wanted you to see how that defines that ribbon area out. So does anyone have any questions? Christina's asking, do I stitch in the ditch to tack down the backing? Well, you know, Christine, that's a good question, because you do have this. Oh, let me back up again. I'm glad you asked that before we were done. So let me get everything back out of my way again here. Take care of that mess after. So let me get this guy back out. I'm going to get myself all confused here shortly of what I'm working on. Okay, so once you stitch this around the edge and you turn it right side out, you do have this big piece of fabric that's not attached anywhere here. And that's fine, because generally quilting is so that you can attach your batting, and see, we did that. Oh, now you can see my stitching. How's that? Okay, so the batting is all stitched down, it's no issue. But I think, Christine, let me turn this, pretend this is right side out now. I think that it would be a good idea. So you want to make sure that you have this all pressed, and you want to make sure that when you press it, you can feel that seam, and you want to press that seam to the back, not to the front, to the back. And when I press that seam, I mean, I really press that seam down, kind of squish its guts out so it sits flat, because that's double batting there. But I think that I would probably take my same thread that I quilted with, and I would outline maybe 1/4 of an inch away, all the way around, and that way it's going through to the back, all the way around. But I would do it probably 1/4 inch away from the edge. So I would come down, up, over, here, and out. And then I would come here, in, down, over, down, over, out, out. Make sure you lock it at the beginning and its end, and so forth. And keep an eye on the back. Make sure it's not wrinkled. It should be fine if you've given it a good press. But yes, Christine, I think that's a great idea. So if you did 1/4 inch away with your quilting thread, which I'm assuming is kind of a neutral, doesn't show, it will define this a little more. And it doesn't puff up, but it'll define the area a little more. So I think that would be a great idea. Good thinking, Christine, good thinking. Okay, let me check and see if there's any more questions. So I think that's it for today. You're going to continue on like good little doobies. I have to go back, and I have to remember I hadn't stitched here, so I got to pull this back away from the front. Finish my applique stitch, then I can close this one up, and I will do that stitch around, and I'll put it up on Facebook. So if any of you want to put a picture of whatever you've got done, because everybody likes to see everybody else's fabric. I know I should do an Instagram thing. I guess I should do that. But for now, if you want to post it, so today, I did a reminder today for this class, so you could post your pictures there, what you did, all that, because everybody really likes to see everyone else's stuff, because everybody always likes everyone else's stuff better than their own. So if you're not liking your own stuff, it won't matter, because everybody else is going to like it. So if you would do that, and it just helps the other person with, seeing different color choices, You might have, this might be dark and this might be lighter. You might have had, like I could have done this part, the ribbons in this color and done this part, the bow in more of a red. You got all kinds of choices. You know, put it to the middle, put it to the center, all kinds of choices. Put a real ribbon on it, a real bow on it, whatever you want. So let me just stop for a minute and see if anybody has any last minute questions before we go. I think, I know Lynn's going to laugh at me, but I think we're going to do a quilt as you go table runner next week. And I will try my hardest to make sure that it's not Friday night when I tell you what you need for fabric. I only hesitate because I want to make sure it's easy to do it. I have mine all cut out and ready to go because I was going to do it today, and then I decided I wanted a Christmas present table placemat. Anyway, I want to try it out because I don't want it to be too hard to handle. You know, quilt as you go, and you're going 42 inches a whole length of strip. It's a lot, so I'm going to see how it is, or if I need to do something different. Oh, I'll shut my own light out. So I will keep you posted. And let me see. Do I have any last minute questions? Oh, thanks, Christine. Thanks. And thanks for asking about that quilting, because I think that would be really nice. I think it would be nice. So everybody go ahead, and I'm sure you're still doing your applique stitching. It's not hard. Just takes a little while to get done. Nice straight lines, not like the witch in the tree we did last week. You know, I thought I'd give you a little break with something with long straight lines. It's easy to do. So for those of you that join in on Thursday nights, I'll see you Thursday night at 7. Otherwise, I'll see you next Saturday at 1. And I'm only saying that because I'm not sure, and I don't have a calendar, my work calendar in front of me, if it's 1:30, but I will post it. I will post it up to Facebook, Miss LoreensSchoolhouse Facebook. So again, thanks for joining. Click the thumbs up if you'd be so kind. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Ring the bell. Hit the share it with somebody so we can get more people joining in with us. If you have an idea of something that you want to do that's a fairly simple project for a Saturday sew-along, just stick it in my Facebook. That doesn't sound right, does it? Post it in my Facebook under today's class. I'll see it, and we'll put some more things on the list. So again, another project, easy to do, great gift. You know, make 2 or 4 of them, or 6 if you really want to, or just make 1 for yourself, however you want to do it. So have a good rest of the day, rest of the weekend, and I will see you either Thursday night at 7 p.m. or Saturday at 1. I believe it's 1. If not, it'll be 1:30, and I will post it. So thank you, everyone.